So, we have these two fractions. Some runners say you only need some random running shoes, a shirt and some shorts to run a 15, 20, 30k run. And on the other side, we have people who look like they're on a mission to retrieve, I don't know what, out of space. Maxed the fuck out. Most expensive gear you could possibly acquire and seeming, well, thoroughly over-prepared for whatever their mission is. And my experience with social media is that most people are on either end of the spectrum, or at least those people are the ones that are the loudest, because they have the strongest opinions. But me personally, I have a different and very specific view on this whole topic. And that's why I want to shine a light on this conflict between the two fronts. Not only explaining to you what both sides are made of, but giving you a practical example of how I personally used gear based on these specific runs, and how my usage shifts throughout the days. It's not always black and white. It just isn't as simple. So let's hit it. So let's talk about the two extremes. On the one side, we have the minimalist. And the philosophy is pretty simple. Keep it basic. Some running shoes that do the job, some somewhat appropriate running clothing, does not need to be too expensive, but just something that works, and maybe a GPS watch if you really want to spend some money on fancy stuff. But that's it. Those people usually tend to be the ones telling you that you don't need to take water or hydration onto your runs, you don't need gels, you don't need anything besides the basics, because that is what works for them personally. And the benefits are there. The running experience is focused on experiencing it in a very pure way. It is focused on the body, it is focused on the experience itself, and this raw feeling, making it feel primal in some way, if you get what I mean. Beyond that, it is very low cost and uncomplicated, and that can be very appealing for some specific individuals. The minimalist mindset also has some downsides. The minimalist approach will not work for some specific individuals. Me personally, I cannot do the minimalist training approach. I need hydration, I need electrolytes, I need carbs, otherwise training performance can suffer quite severely. And you might not have as much training data based on the minimalist approach of tech usage. But what's the other side? The maximizers. Those are the people who genuinely have the motto, optimize everything. So these are the folks that rock the GPS watch, which I have, a heart rate monitor, have the gels with them, maybe some electrolyte packs, the hydration, the vest, the fancy running clothing, the carbon fiber shoes. And beyond that, recovery tools, and they're doing all the fancy stuff. So they are trying to do everything possible to maximize performance, maximize recovery, maximize outcomes, and maximize the general experience of running. They do not care about money, so that's definitely a downside. It's quite expensive. It isn't simple because you need to buy a lot of stuff, you need to always be stacked, you need to have all these things set in place in order for the running experience to be good, because you've set the standard so very high that now you need to always get everything nailed. You need the gels, you need the hydration, you need the good clothing, you need the carbon fiber shoes, because if you don't wear the carbon fiber shoes and the other stuff, you're going to be slower, and that's going to feel quite unmotivating. So it's more expensive and you are quite dependent on the gear. But there are also benefits to it. So you're definitely going to get some benefits from all of these things. Hydration is very important. Gels, carb source, pretty good. You're going to have a slight performance increase for sure. The tech gives you some very good data through which you can then optimize your training. And you do have the added element of security because you have everything with you that your body needs. So those are the two sides and their ups and downs. There's obviously much more to it, but I don't want to go in too deep. So having established what these two opposite sides are, let's compare the key points of interest. Performance. So does the extra gear help or not? This is something that could be very dependent on your personal needs and also on the state that you're currently in. Are you a complete beginner or are you a more advanced runner like me, for example? If you are hitting 30k plus long runs on a regular basis, having more running gear might be a very positive thing. Being more prepared, having all the hydration you need, having electrolytes on your side, having carbs on your side, having decent shoes that get you through the kilometers. If you're somebody who is actually running 80 plus kilometers per week, maybe 100 plus kilometers per week, hitting the long grueling sessions, maybe on marathon prep. Having these things can make it more sustainable. It can increase performance in the long run even, and it can increase the performance on a session-by-session basis. It is a very known fact that staying on top of hydration and fueling does make the biggest difference. But the thing is, if you're just starting off with a running experience, you're hitting your 5Ks, maybe 10Ks, is that as relevant? Maybe not. And that is the main point of interest. How far are you into the running journey? And if you are quite far into it, maybe it's actually an upside to go a little heavy on the gear. Comfort. So we have minimal and maximal comfort. I do not think so. Doesn't have to. In terms of comfort, there does not need to be that big of a difference between the maximal and minimal approach. Maximizing everything and optimizing for performance doesn't need to mean that you are more comfortable during the runs. Have you ever tried carbon fiber shoes? They are not the most comfortable, and comfort isn't the main goal in the end. Optimizing for performance is the main goal. You could make an argument for spending more money in order to optimize for performance and comfort, but most people genuinely try to optimize for performance, and comfort kind of falls off the back. Compared to that, having a minimalist approach, I guess that can be quite comfortable because you're not carrying a lot of gear with you. You don't have a running belt, you don't have a running vest, you're not carrying water, you're not carrying gels, you don't have a heart rate strap around your chest or anything else, anything that's bothering you. So that's actually, in my personal opinion, more comfortable. So comfort-wise, I'd say it's either a match, or it's actually towards the minimalist side. So coming to the next point, the costs. So this is obviously, there's a big discrepancy here. We have the essentials on the minimalist side, and we have the, well, everything and beyond that on the maximized side. As somebody who tries to keep everything at a minimum, you're only gonna spend money for what truly matters. Your running shoes are completely fucked, you're gonna get a new pair. Your shirt has holes everywhere, you might get a new one. But that's literally it, and there's not much more to it. You might change your running watch as soon as it doesn't work anymore, but that's it. And contrary to that, in the maximized category, we buy all the new stuff. So, oh, there's a better running watch, I might get that one because it's nicer. Oh, there's a new collection dropping from that running brand, I'm gonna buy that tank top or singlet for $100, or these pants for $80. New running shoes with carbon fiber plate in them, oh, that's another $250 just spent on something that isn't truly necessary. And then there's all the gels and all the other nutrition things, the running belt, the whatever. It is truly a waste of money at some point, and some people severely overdo it. Coming to practicality, and this is where there's actually even more nuance to it. We have to differentiate between daily running and something like marathon prep, ultra marathon prep, so the daily chill running for the standard runner, or the more advanced runner that is actually quite passionate about it and wants to achieve something, wants to increase performance at a fast rate. And depending on the goal setting, you would either tend towards the minimalist or the maximized approach. If you are somebody like me who's trying to run a sub-3 marathon, I'd say it actually does make a difference to get the gear, to have the good stuff, to have the good shoes, invest in a new pair of shoes as soon as the old one kind of feels wonky, because you're just banging out the miles, you're banging out the Ks, you're pushing the paces, and if you do not stay on top of the gear, if you do not have enough fuel, hydration, all the things at your disposal, all the right metrics through tracking the data, that can have downsides down the line. So practicality wise, it depends on the specific goal and on your state of training. And coming to the last point, longevity. This could both mean either sticking to the training in general or not getting injured and staying on top of recovery and all of that. And the thing is, this again really depends on your goals and on how much you're actually putting in. Because if you're running 30, 40, 50 kilometers per week, you might be completely okay doing the minimalist approach, just having the bare minimum of basic equipment. You won't have excessive fatigue, therefore you won't need any recovery tools. You're not really running that far, therefore having extra hydration, extra nutrition won't be as big of a deal, and it could genuinely be annoying to always carry that much gear and be so obsessed with tracking data and all optimizing. That could genuinely make it harder for you to stick to the running because it's more complex. But on the other side, if you're somebody who, again, is doing the marathon, is training a lot, running just every single day and pushing 20, 30k runs, it might just make your life far easier, and you might not be able to stick to the running for a long duration of time if you do not have the gear, because your body just burns out. And having all the data and all the good equipment could actually make the general experience nicer, because you have more data to track. You can compare more accurately, and you know that the extra gear does make a difference in terms of performance and recovery. So this again really depends on your level of fitness and on the goal. And this is the general consensus of this whole thing, of this whole concept. It's about how far are you into the running journey and what is the goal. That's why it isn't as simple to say, yeah, minimalist or maximalist. And to showcase this in real life from somebody like me who actually really shifts the gear usage throughout the running days based on the duration and the intensity of the run, I just wanted to show you what I bring on a 36k marathon pace effort workout, which I did today prior to filming this. So this is what I brought for my session today, and let's put it that way, this was the best session of my entire life. Especially compared to last week's session where I felt like shit, and I only changed some very tiny bits that made all the difference. And not only during the session, performance-wise, but also now afterwards, I feel much fresher. And the gear was the reason why. So I just finished the first 6 kilometers of this 36 kilometer marathon pace effort run. So I'm actually having a 36k long run and sprinkling in a 2x6k marathon pace effort, so that's gonna be pretty intense. Already finished the first 6k, and this is the loadout. This is what I take on such a kind of more extreme session, on a very long, grueling session, and it's gonna be far more than the usual 10k, 15k, 20k easy run. So this is it. On a session like this, I'm gonna have not 2, not 3, but I have another one in the back. 4 flasks filled with Powerade and electrolytes, because I'm a very heavy sweater and I sweat a lot of electrolytes. I'm gonna struggle with cramps and with a lot of discomfort and pain if I don't consume enough electrolytes and fluids. So in my specific case, that's very important and might just be the bare minimum to survive such a session. On top of that, I do have, I don't know if you can see it, 1, 2, 3 gels with me. One of that is caffeinated, the other ones are just a lot of carbs. And I do carry my flask in this running belt, which I'm also going to use during the marathon, and the gels in my pockets of the pants that I'm using. So for very specific instances such as this run here, or just long runs, pretty hefty marathon preps, it might just be a very good idea to invest in some good gear. Without these things, I wouldn't be able to perform well in these sessions. That's just a given. And yes, some people need less stuff to make it through these, but I am not those people, and you might not be as well. So if you're somebody that just needs that extra hydration, that just needs those extra carbs, take them, especially for those super crucial workouts. And in terms of other gear, so I have my pants, I have the super light tank top that I'm using, that is beneath here, because I'm sweating too much. And I am wearing a speedy, but not too speedy trainer. So these here are my Saucony Endorphin Speed Force. I am too far away from the marathon itself, that's why I'm not using my marathon trainer. So I have the Saucony Endorphin Elite, which I'm going to use for the marathon itself, but I cannot use it too frequently, because during my last prep I completely obliterated my running shoes and they were done after the second marathon. I cannot use them anymore, and I do want to keep those fresh and mint and just use them for like 2 runs during this entire prep to get used to them, but that's it. Yeah, so this is my, I guess it's as minimal as it gets. Heart rate monitor, watch, and that's it. Yeah, tracking the data is pretty important on these sessions. But this is advanced stuff. I'm running a 36k interval session. This is a hefty session, and I'm pretty far into my marathon and running journey. That is the reason why I need these things, and I'm at the point where I know that I need these. That's kind of the thing, that's the deal. So this is a practical example of how this could look like based on what I am doing, based on what my requirements are. And it could be more, it could be less, depending on your goals and what your body needs. Yeah. So I actually decided to do a 12k marathon pace effort as my first block, and then another 6k, and I am finishing up the 12k right now. Jesus, that
are solid. Holy shit. Just finished off the 12k marathon effort block, which was really good. Holy shit. I planned doing a 6k, but during the 6k I started feeling like, Jesus, I can do much more than that. Feeling way better than usual. And yeah, ended up doing a 12k. Done, quick pause. Gonna get some more hydration because I finished the first bottle. Gonna bash a gel down, and then we're good to go for the next case. Let's go. Okay, we are officially 24 kilometers in. This is the last stop for this entire run. Gonna down this gel, 6k interval block, last interval block on the menu. After that 6k easy and we're done. Solid session so far, legs are feeling tired. So I wasn't hoping for a lot with today's session, but turns out this was the best session. 36 kilometers, full 15 minute per k pace. That is my goal marathon pace, and I wouldn't have struggled a single bit running that sub 3 marathon today. This is the exact reason why I wanted to make this video, because preparing properly, having enough hydration, having enough electrolytes on your disposal, having the carbs that you require, will ensure that your performance stays on top throughout even such long workouts. So contrary to this session today, last week's session was an absolute disaster, where I didn't have enough electrolytes, didn't have enough fluid, didn't have enough carbs. And what ended up happening was that after my second interval round, I was doing a 3x4, I was starting to get such severe cramps in my abs that I couldn't properly finish. And that session turned out to be a complete disaster. I managed to finish somewhat strong, but I was in pain the whole time, and it was actually pretty brutal pain. So today there was nothing. I was much faster. I performed extremely well and had no issues. Reason being, properly prepared, have all the gear that I need, and yeah, it's not stupid to be properly prepared and maybe even slightly overdo it in comparison to not having enough and then failing based on that.
So even though I genuinely don't try to overcomplicate things and have too much gear on my side, there are specific workouts where it becomes a necessity to not try minimizing everything. Some sessions, some instances just need extra preparation, extra caution, and maybe an excess of gear. Just to make sure that you will not burn out, just to make sure that the session is going well and that you're recovering properly afterwards. I think the general motto should be finding the balance. Easy running, minimal gear, big, grueling workouts, essential gear. Only add gear if it truly makes a difference. And in order to find what gear truly makes a difference for you, you just need to experience it. You need to go out, do the hard workouts and see what is missing, what could potentially benefit me. And through trial and error, through just figuring it out over time, you're gonna come to the conclusion of what truly is relevant for you. And that can make the biggest difference. Utilizing gear strategically based on the day, based on the session, is the best approach, in my personal opinion. So coming to the conclusion, most runners do not need a wardrobe full of gear, maxed the fuck out, having everything you could potentially have, the most expensive, beautiful things. But sometimes the right piece of gear and another flask filled with Powerade and electrolytes could make the difference between having a great session and the session being an absolute disaster. I'm actually very interested to hear about your guys' opinions, because I know there are people who will 100% agree, and there are people who are gonna say, no, you don't need anything, no matter what, which just isn't the reality of things. But as I said, I'm curious to hear if you guys would choose to go minimal or maximize during something like a 36k workout, the one that I did today. So yeah, hope you guys actually enjoyed the video. I know, quite a interesting and controversial topic, but I think that I summed it up quite nicely. And if you enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I always do appreciate that a shit ton. Yeah, thanks for watching and see you guys for next week's video. Bye!